Hey everyone, welcome. I know it's still at the top of the hour, so as all of you continue to flood in, we are so excited to have you. This is going to be an amazing session. As we get started, just a few housekeeping things. Make sure that your chat is turned to panelists and attendees. This is my downfall of every Zoom call. Even though I always say it, I always forget. So make sure it's turned panelists and attendees, and we want to hear from you as we're getting started. We want to make this geared to you and what's important to you. So tell us, where are you coming from and what do you do? Jesse, I'd love to hear from you. Kirsten, Martin, Nicholas, I'm so excited to see all of you. Drop where you're coming from. I'm coming from the beautiful Fort Worth, Texas, and I think we're about to get another thunderstorm as my migraine is starting to act up. And Nikhita, you're coming from sunny California.
It's
Right?
not so sunny today. It's actually been quite rainy, so we're in the same boat as you, but hopefully more sunshine soon in the Bay Area.
Kevin's coming from Temecula. Fun fact, Kevin, I grew up showing horses, and I've been to Temecula and to the racetrack many a times. So always love seeing that. And Ashish, you are coming from Chicago, right?
Sunny Chicago, yes.
Sunny Chicago.
For today.
For today, yes. Just wait. All the weather that Nikita's getting is coming to Texas, and that's a little upward turn.
Gonna move.
Right.
And welcome to Sales Hacker Meteorologist today. No, we're so excited. Hey, Tony, it's nice to see you. This is so great to see everyone. Don't forget, always welcome to drop your LinkedIn link in the chat so we can connect with you. And yeah, we're going to get started here in a little bit as soon as we get a few more in here. This is going to be an amazing session. Some of you had actually attended our first session with Nikhita, and this is going to be just an awesome extension of the first one. She's going to go over a little bit of what we learned in the first and what we're going to learn in this one. Oh my gosh, Martin. I think it's actually pronounced Martine, I'm assuming, since you're in Paris. Love it. I had a fabulous week once, paid for by my last company in Paris, and it was amazing. So I bet it's beautiful there. So awesome. And don't forget, drop your role in here too. Are you an SDR? Are you an AE? Are you a business owner? Do you focus in the SMB space? Are you an enterprise person? Let us know before we get started here. And once again, make sure that your chat is turned to panelists and attendees. Make sure that you are actively using that today. We're going to have a lot of fun discussion in the chat and in the session. Also, at the very, very bottom of your screen, next to your raise hand button, you'll see a Q&A box. Press that. Make sure that you have that open so you can ask questions throughout the whole session. We're going to have a lot of great discussion. We're going to be answering your questions in real time, and then I think we'll have some time at the end of this too for some Q&A. So very excited to have you. There's a few of you that I'm recognizing, so I'm happy to see you back here. Some from Phoenix, Arizona. Stephanie, I'm actually a Cave Creek native. So love to see you here. Got some C-levels, revenue enablement, sales enablement. This is great. So as we get started, once again, you are all here to learn about leveraging digital channels to drive your revenue growth, owning your digital real estate, so much more, right? How do we even become digitally resilient, right? How do we make sure that whenever people look for businesses, they're looking for us and that we're really owning that market share? How do we, at the end of the day, right, like really make it all about our customer journey and making sure that from the second the customer sees our name on a billboard or on an ad or wherever, that it's an amazing experience all the way throughout. So I'm going to let Moxtra's Head of Strategic Business, Nikhita, introduce our guest, introduce herself, and then we'll kind of get going from there.
Thank you so much, Katie. And thank you to everyone on the call today. We're so excited to have all of you. And I think, for those of you joining us for the first time, we had a really exciting session just a couple weeks back where we got into, the midst of all the topics Katie's just covered, which is, what does it really mean to offer a digital experience to your B2B customers? How do you manage that B2B network in a way that creates digital resilience, right? Which is what businesses are about today. And we have to be about creating that strength as an organization that's going to take us through the next 5 to 10 years set our brand apart, and really help us build a resilient customer base that's loyal to the experience we offer. So as part of that today, we have a very exciting guest with us who I'm going to introduce briefly, coming up just shortly in a few minutes. But before I do that, I want to get started with an overview of what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to actually kick things off by walking through a brief introduction on, what did we cover in the last webinar for those of you who weren't able to attend. And then, as we wrap up those key points, I would like to introduce someone very special who we have on, Ashish Shah from Cornerstone. And we're going to be able to get a really exciting opportunity to learn all from him in terms of how he's approached digitization with his organization, the background on Cornerstone, and get his unique perspective as, a founder and president of his own business. How does he approach account management and digitization in this everly increasing mobile-centric world? So with that, I'm going to start off by, diving into what I mentioned, which is a very brief introduction on what we discussed last time. So let's kick things off with this idea of customer centricity. We really focused in on this during the first webinar and what it means to build a customer-centric framework as a B2B leader, right? And so this time we're going to take that concept and focus in more on what that translates to for driving revenue growth. Specifically, looking at what we learned from the first webinar. What did we talk about? We talked about today's current customer experience. We talked about the challenges businesses face in an increasingly digital world, what that means for the impact it has on client loyalty, client retention, as well as growth. And most importantly, how does an organization of any size today go about thinking about building that digital experience? What do you think about in the factors to consider for building something that's cost effective, but provides significant value to your customers long term to build those persistent relationships? Now, for context, as you may recall, our background in Moxtra comes from a significant history in what I'd like to call the real-time to the just-in-time era. Our founder and CEO, Subra, was a founder of WebEx. And for those of you who know or don't know, WebEx was really the company that coined the term real-time because it was the first video meeting solution to really overtake the market. And from that is really where our background comes in today and focusing on this digital experience from a mobile-centric perspective. Because in today's day and age, we've moved to a mobile landscape. We've moved from its desktop era to a model that's driven around anytime, any place communication. And I think, we're all used to clicking a button on our phones, as we discussed last time, and you get a juice delivered to your door or a Chipotle bowl, within 20 to 30 minutes by clicking a button on your phone. And the funny thing is that expectation is really no different in the world of business. And that's what organizations have to think about, right? The rise of mobile is not just a delivery model for service in the consumer world, but it's a change in expectation because everybody is now multiplexing their time. We're in 5, 10, 15 conversations at the same time that are messaging driven, and that's how we expect to live. And so this is our model. And if we know that that's our model, you look at the market recommendations. Unfortunately, the market still recommends solutions that combine many different solutions that were built more so for the brick and mortar and the desktop era, and combine that with a bit of in-person, a bit of messaging, and before you know it, you're left with 10 to 15 different platforms you're using to get done with one process with your customer. And the question to ask is it making your customer's life easier? Is it convenient for the customer? Typically not. And that's what we're looking to solve for, and there are critical factors that I'm sure we're going to learn more about from Ashish, but I think every business faces this, right? There are persistent customer relationships. There's document-heavy interactions. There's complexity. Security is a crucial factor as well in that back and forth. And there's time that goes into those relationships as well as building a brand reputation. So as we transition over to thinking about this new model, we have to consider what we talked about last time, which is in the old model, enterprises traditionally in any business was structured around having their customers outside and their staff inside. So you had 4 physical walls around your organization. Whereas today, the new model is shifting towards this model we like to call extraprise, right? And extraprise is keeping your customers at the center of your organization, bringing them inside and surrounding them. So with that, really when we talk to Ashish today and when we get your questions in from the audience, we want to be thinking about how does a business in this era approach building their organization? And we touched on this as a conclusion from the first webinar, which is In the desktop era, if you have nothing in existence, a business was thinking about creating their organization around their website. That was the way for your customers to reach out to you and get service from you. That was your initial point of contact. But in today's day and age, it's now mobile centric. And so businesses have to think about it as though they're getting a fresh start. How do you build your brand and how do you build your business in a mobile era? And that's around this concept of an app. And I think, as we'll see today, there are many layers to it. Convenience is obvious because customers have to have a great experience to be loyal to you in today's day and age, but your business needs control. You need to be able to control that experience, and you need the compliance factor covered too. So with that, I'd like to move to the really exciting part of this session now that we've recapped what we went through in the first one. And that is a conversation with our amazing guest we have here today as we go through, conversation to understand how Cornerstone approached this idea of digital convenience. How do they manage their customer network? What is their business about? And what can we learn from them? And I think, we all know businesses go through these workflows that are supported by so many back and forth stages, and it's a constant cycle. Whether you're a permit company, whether you're an accounting firm, you're in construction, you face the same challenges of the cycles of business that we go through and the many things you need to support as an organization as your customers are moving through cycles of business with you. So Ashish, I'd like to kick things off with you and, to our great audience here today. As I mentioned, if you're joining for the first time now, we have a wonderful guest who we are in conversation with today. And we're going to dive into an exciting chat with Ashish Shah from Cornerstone. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Ashish to introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you, Nikhita. So yes, my name is Ashish Shah, and I am the founder, president, and CEO of Cornerstone Permit Company. We are a permit expediting or permit consulting firm based in Chicago. And what that means, what we do is we facilitate the building permit process. Basically, we're the liaison or the middleman between the architect or the contractor or the developer and between that and the municipality. So for us, it's Chicago. Or even we've expanded to New York now as well. So we are in New York City, providing the same type of services. What we, I've been in the industry for about 13 years, and Cornerstone is 6 years old. We have employees here in Chicago and in New York as well, and we're doing a lot of work outside of Chicago, doing a bunch of, our customers are, restaurant owners or construction or contractors, general contractors, or even large development firms all across the country. So it's been this year with it marks, I think today marked a year that we have been in this pandemic, and hopefully we get out of it soon, but it made me think a lot on how to take my business to the next level. And Moxtra is playing a key role in that.
Well, I think it's going to be really exciting to get into deeper conversation with you, and just for sharing that background, we really appreciate it, because talking to someone who's built their own business from the ground up and is in the industry and also facing this challenge right now, right, that businesses are facing across the world, who we can get a perspective from of how you've approached this and why you've approached it that way too, right? I think that's one of the most important things for viewers to hear. So I guess with that, I'd like to almost kick things off with saying, could you walk me through a typical cycle of what it looks like for a Cornerstone client, right? How do you work with your clients? What does that process on a day-to-day look like?
So, years ago, so like I said, I've been doing this for about 13 years. So when I first started, I was at a firm where things were done. It's 13 years ago, things were done a lot differently than they are now. But I felt like, being in this pandemic, you get to think a lot more, right? And think of more innovative ways of connecting with your customer, right? And keeping them in the loop of what is going on with their projects, right? What's the best way of doing that? And and for us, I felt like even with my competitors, we're all people have been doing uh, the same thing for many, many years, and it hasn't gone to that next level. And I felt like I could do that, and I think with the people that are part of the industry now, I think they're changing. I think the younger generation is coming in, and the
Yeah.
younger generation is more mobile, right? And wanting to stay more connected when you're in a business, right? When you're trying to conduct business, you want to make sure you are accessible. And with that, I needed to do something to take it to that next level. And to have a phone application and a web portal was, I thought, the best thing to do.
Well, that's so interesting just to hear what you just said, and I wanna break into a lot of that, right, and dig in deeper. One thing being, you talked about this idea that the younger generation, and there's this shift happening in that people expect a different kind of service experience, right? And in your experience, how has that affected your industry, right? One that's typically more traditional in terms of the setup with how you engage with those customers.
Yeah, so now it's everyone has a smartphone, right? And
Yeah.
everyone's on it, regardless of what they're doing on it. They're on it almost even while working. They're still on it, right?
Yeah.
And receiving notifications here and there for your food has arrived, or you have received an email, or for us, it has you have received an approval for a certain discipline, or your permit has been issued, kind of notification. To see something like that on your phone, it's a very before the pandemic, pre-pandemic, and I'm assuming post-pandemic as well. The industry, the construction industry, or the real estate industry as a whole, is a very go 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 industry, right? Even if you're
Right.
an agent, if you're a real estate agent, you are always on the go, whether you're going to do showings or whatever, right? Even if you're a contractor, you're going from job to job, even that you're managing, or you're on the job site. So you're relying on your phone to have messages sent to you and whatnot. So we felt like that's the way that we wanted to take. I wanted to take this in that direction because we're gonna let's face it, like we're with the generation that's coming in, the future CEOs, right, or the
Yeah.
future administrators or what have you, are the ones that are going to be more mobile. They're going to be more technology driven than feel like sometimes the email might be a thing of the past, or where you can everything is documented. Like with us with Moxtra, everything is documented in a conversation or a chat. So I think it's been my customers so far have been really loving the way we have been conducting the business in the past year.
So that's really interesting because you mentioned quite a few things there again too, right? In terms of your industry, the approach, the on the go aspect. That's so true. I think we always see that men, right? People are constantly on the go. They're moving from job site to job site, but yet they're emailing, they're waiting till somebody in real time can pick up the phone, get in touch with them, or see them in person.
Right.
And as she talked about this on the last webinar, the shift from this idea of real time and maintaining a real time model with your customers to just in time. Because in the end of the day, and I'd love to know from your perspective, real time is costly. It's expensive to promise your customers that you can be available for them 24 hours a day. But in a way, when you say it's just in time means you're supporting them, on an ongoing basis anytime they want, but it's not necessarily just at that exact time being synchronized, right? And so how has that, I guess, especially with COVID-19 in the last year, right, and the shift to digital, I can imagine you've been coupled with a barrage of customer queries on how to manage these processes. What does that mean for your business and your customer facing priorities? How have you approached that?
I feel like they've been, customers have been really receptive to the approach, right?
Yeah.
Which it's something different. It's absolutely different in our industry that we have been uh, showing them, right? Which with and to walk them through how it works, right? The real time aspect of it is a big deal to our customers because it's just for us, if we do not get this permit for that company or this approval for that firm, right, they are not going to be able to build or they're not going to be able to renovate. So our role is, if we don't get that permit for you, or if we don't keep in touch with you with what's going communication, right? If we don't communicate with you on what's going on with your process, whether it be in real time, I think it's a big factor that has definitely been a plus for us to keep communicating with our clients.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense because in the end of the day, like you said, it's a constant back and forth and it's crucial. People want updates. They want to know where are you in the process of working with them, right? In their
Right.
business. In the end of the day, that's what they're paying you for. It's that service experience of having you there with them, in their pocket in a way, right?
Right.
It's like, hey, I need this tomorrow. I need to know where your team's at with it. And I think that in particular highlights one of the biggest challenges businesses face, particularly in the B2B space, is creating a customer-centric digital strategy that prioritizes the experience of the business you work with versus just maintaining that relationship. And I think, you've talked to me a bit about customer centricity and everything you've talked about so far. What have been the biggest factors that you've looked out for when building that digital strategy? Now that you have it, when you went about thinking about it, what did you consider?
Communication was key in that, and keeping everyone connected. It's easier to keep people connected via a phone app, I think, than trying to put together an email, right? A lengthy email. Sometimes it's just a, hey, I just need to tell you something really quick. I don't need to put a lengthy email together. Let me just share it with you on our app, right? And they love that. I think customers have been really eating that up right now with us, where that's how we've been able to keep them in the loop with our digital strat. Our digital strategy has been to take everything mobile, right, and use technology to the fullest. And that's kind of where we're headed right now. And it all started last year.
Well, and it's so interesting, right? Because I think we hear this across the board now that we're kind of starting to come out of COVID-19 and hopefully get out of what we've been calling the new normal the last year. Businesses are starting to look at how much of a play digital will have in their industry once things move back to whatever that next normal is, right? And I think from our experience, what we're seeing is B2B leaders have to consider digital as a means of the future, regardless of, going back to an in-person model. I think it's interesting because brick and mortar and this sort of customer retention relationship based, strategy that's typically focused on, well, hey, I've had the relationship for years, so you're still going to be my customer. It's not necessarily holding the same value that argument did, let's say 5-7 years ago. And, we hear that a lot of businesses struggle with this. And it seems like from your organization's perspective, from your customer engagement strategy that you thought about, how did you consider this sort of brick and mortar or in-person phone-based relationship that you had with your customers previously, transitioning your B2B customers to that? And what about from a cost perspective? What was, the thing that you considered there?
Yeah, so the cost perspective is there, So I'm going to take you many years back when my father had his business. He had a dye business, textiles business, and at that time, that was many years ago. And at that time, he was all about the in person, and it was someone seeing someone face to face did something more to him than talking over the phone or having a conference call at that time, right? There was no such thing as Zoom at that time, or Moxtra or whatever. The having these meetings online, right, or virtual meetings. I think I can handle more meetings now than I did maybe even a year ago because I could do them all virtually, rather than having to get in a cab or get on a plane to go somewhere. And I can show my face, right? Still
Yeah.
the people, and still try to portray what we're trying to do and why we are. If I'm trying to get business from other people, then I can still show them. They can see it's the same thing, I think, but
Yeah.
it's just something that can be done quicker, right? If I don't have the time to get to a client's office that's maybe an hour away, hey, let's meet virtually. I think that's going to be something that's going to keep moving, keep going on. Since even after we get back to some sort of normalcy, I think people are still going to be able to do that.
Well, it's so interesting you mentioned that because we were talking to an architect just last week, and he said something so interesting. He said, just recently before COVID, I was already starting to do all my interactions via messaging or via meetings, and he said sometimes my customers would say, "Oh, but we're right down the street from you. You can come over to our place and walk us through the plans." And he said, "No, that's okay. I can do it from my office. And if you want to come here, happy to do that." And he said, and his customers love that. It's just as personal for many of them. And he said, in many cases, he finds that it's a better use of his time and theirs. There's not all this external time spent on getting to the destination, on sitting down, and all the kind of the chit chat that happens in between, which
Right,
is a part of the relationship. It's necessary on an ongoing basis, but it can't be the only way, to
right,
get things done, especially in a business like yours where approvals are so important, right? And you're working on a time constraint to get something done, a deadline, and
yeah.
deliver. So I guess, what would be really interesting to hear from you from that perspective is how has Cornerstone thought about leveraging, legacy systems or privacy and taking that into account when you do create this sort of a digital experience for your customers?
So I'm going to take Chicago for example. It is all digital, meaning everything that we submit for our permit reviews is electronic. There's no paper, blueprints or drawings that need to
Right.
be submitted. It's all online. It's all online. So the days of come to my office to review plans uh, are done. I think it's everyone's able to either upload the drawings somewhere for me to see, or for my project managers to see, or for architects to see. It's all becoming digital. Um, it's and that's the reason, right? Because we have to. Our business is that to obtain the permit so you can build, right, or so you can
Yeah.
renovate. But those, in order to do, even the permits are available digitally now. So I
Right.
feel like many municipalities across the country have gone electronic. A few have, I like Los Angeles, for example, has not yet,
Yeah.
uh, which is kind of weird to me. But I think they might be getting there soon. But Chicago is, New York is, I know Houston is,
Yeah.
uh, Miami, Nashville. There's so many other municipalities that we are getting into those markets where they're all electronic, and I can do that now more because of the fact that I can meet with people virtually.
Yeah.
And it's helped us a lot to grow the business.
Well, again, you made a couple of really interesting points there, right? Which is first, you talked about the various parties involved in that cycle, right? You said maybe there's an end customer, but there's an architect,
Right.
there's someone on your team, there's a project manager. And so, how has that been for you during the pandemic and kind of powering your own digital experience? What are the effects you've seen on managing not just your customers, but the network of people involved in, let's say, a business cycle or process for you? Because I think that's
Yeah.
key for these situations.
Yeah, and I think at first it was kind of, it was like, okay, well, how are we going to do this, right? Um,
Yeah.
and and even my employees, right? How is we had to close the office down, at least the in person, not going into the office. And right now we don't have the office. It's open, but we go in maybe once or twice a week or one person goes just to check
Yeah.
mail and things like that. Right? So even to communicate with my own employees, I had to come up with a way. There had to be a way to communicate with them, uh, digitally, virtually, because we are not able to see each other in person, right? So, uh, which is what we've been using Moxtra for as well. So And we've been, we've been lucky enough even to communicate with our clients virtually that way. So with the Zoom meet or Moxtra or however we had, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So we
yeah, of
really
course.
utilized it to the fullest because we had to keep business going no matter what. Business had to keep moving, or else we could the whole world couldn't stop. Right? We had to keep. There may have been a little slide in projects and revenue and things like that, but it picked back up after we were able to get this platform going, or to keep meeting with people virtually.
Well, and that's fascinating actually, because I think there's this misnomer, right? There's almost this preconceived notion that, well, the pandemic is what's forcing people to digitize. And I think there's so much that already showed us that before the pandemic even began, the world was moving towards that. The world was moving towards this model of saying people are anywhere. And I know from a lot of the businesses we work with, whether they're, a few people on the team or a very large team, 100,000 plus, they face the same challenge of being able to track what are their staff doing, right? It's not just how can I give better service to my clients, but tomorrow a staff member leaves your organization. Do they take that relationship with them, or do they take that data with them? So I think that's something that's really interesting to consider, because really you hit on a point we talked about quite a bit in the first webinar, and that's this idea of control. Convenience for your customers, and having oversight and visibility, like you've said, into what's going on with you is important, but the control aspect is too.
Right. Oh, most definitely. The control aspect is huge, and to make sure that you have that digitally. If you don't, then you're not going to be able to move on to the future, right? I think it's a plays a big role for sure.
Well, yeah, and there was an article recently where it talked about how today's customers pay for an experience versus a product. And I think in your case, this may resonate with your network of B2B customers too, because these businesses are paying for the experience they're getting from you, versus your competitors, because you're really helping them feel like they're supported through that entire process of getting their permit, even if the end product is always going to be the permit, right?
Right. Exactly. The brand product, you're right, has never changed. It will never change because that's always receiving
Yeah.
that from it, right? But keeping them engaged in that process digitally is a big part of our strategy now.
And so from that, I guess, a question that comes to my mind immediately is, we've heard from a lot of our customers at Moxtra that their businesses struggle with this idea, like we talked about control, but it's managing the data trail, right? What does account control really mean? I think a lot of businesses in the past were quite relationship based with their customers. So when you ask them, why would they work with you versus somebody else? It's, well, they've had a relationship with me, right? And we've known each other for years. But the problem that leads to for organizations, apart from, many of the other things we've discussed of, hey, what's your differentiation between you and your competitors, is also, you don't maintain that control tomorrow. You're not necessarily making sure they're loyal to your organization so much as they are to the person they've been working with on your team. And so, people struggle with that data trail, retaining account control, because digital is a double-edged sword. You have this amazing thing of saying, well, I can now open up and reach a larger base.
Right.
But you also have this struggle of it can get out of control really quickly. How do I maintain oversight? And so from your perspective, how does Cornerstone think about managing this, right? Managing those transitions in customers, and what can we tell other, sales leaders of how to think about it?
Yeah, it's that I think is more um, it, within the organization. You have to be organized still, right? No matter what, it's if you're even if it's digital, if you're not organized, you're not gonna be able to have that control. Uh,
Yeah.
so to be able to manage projects, and to know which projects you're managing and which projects need certain types of updates and things like that. It's all still about organization within the firm.
Yeah, and I love that, because I think sometimes it's so easy to forget that it starts in house, right? In the end of the day, no amount of technology or no amount of digitally innovative solutions can change an organization that's not organized, that doesn't have some sense of structure in place. And I think a lot of businesses have struggled with that, especially as things have moved more digital, because they're trying to figure out how do they transition that structure and that cycle to a new model, right? And a new service offering.
Right.
So from your experience, I mean, you guys have done something absolutely incredible. And I want to talk about now how you've powered your experience, because it's fascinating to see a business like yours that's gone into the pandemic and come out, you would arguably say, even stronger, because you've created something brand new out of this, right? Something to take you forward. So, talk to me about what you created, right? Even apart from the Moxtra aspect, what are the key factors that you considered, right, when building this, and how has that affected your customer base?
So and like I said before, like the customer base is growing, thank God, right? It's growing, but even it's a younger customer base as well. And like I was saying before, the younger generation is more mobile, right?
Right.
And is more on the go. I think even post pandemic, people are going to be on the go again, because that's just how sometimes you need to, in our industry at least. You're not just you're going to you're going to have to be at job sites. You're not going to always be in the office, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
There's
and,
physical product.
yeah, and you're also going to be at home. You may be working from home too, right? So I think that's going to be it's something that I really thought about. What's going to set us aside? What's going to set us, aside from my competitors, right?
Yeah.
What is it going to do? Because, like you said, you touched on this whole relationship factor, right? There are many clients that have relationships with their permit consultants, right?
Right.
We have it too. We have our relationships, our core relationships, right? Even though we're expanding that, but we still have it, and I understand that my competitors have that as well. So what sets us aside from them? And it's this: it is the fact that we are able to stay connected with you wherever you are. You can
Yeah.
be, and if you don't want to be connected when you're on vacation, or if you do want to know when you're on vacation, you will still
Yeah.
get the notification from us saying,
It's your
you know,
choice.
exactly, it's your choice. But you'll get it if you want it, to show
Yeah.
you that, and celebrate that the fact that my permit has been issued now.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. It's
Yeah.
a big deal to get that before it was a stamp, an actual stamp of approval, right?
Right.
Physical stamp of approval. But now it's a notification of an approval that your permit has been issued, or things like that. And
Yeah.
it goes a long way, especially with the generation coming in now.
Well, and I just love what you said about this idea of somebody being at home, somebody being at a job site, or somebody being on vacation, and still having that same level of accessibility,
Right.
right? And that's crucial. I mean, I know for a fact that it's interesting, and you talked about this even earlier. You said, I think we're kind of moving away from that email model. And I feel it, and I know a lot of people I talk to feel that, where it is a feeling based thing, that when sometimes a business reaches out to you via email, it can feel like spam when I'm not
Right.
asking for that information. But when I'm in an app, somehow that feels private. It feels personal, and it feels like I'm getting curated advice from an organization versus, hey, here's 50 spam offers for you to take a look at, or updates, right?
Right.
It just feels personalized. And I'm sure for you in that permit process, there are probably a lot of updates you have to be sharing, right? There's a back and forth. I can imagine there's documents, there's verification with the plans. And so
Exactly.
that can be difficult to manage in, 10, 15, 20 email threads of somebody constantly getting updates.
Right. And this way, instead of having to go into to an email thread, we have a conversation,
Yeah.
right? That is focused or solely on that project that you're involved with, right? Or several
Yeah.
projects that you're involved with. So yeah, I was thinking about, even last year, I was thinking about when my family and I went on vacation years ago. I had to take my laptop and everything with me because, being a
Right.
business owner, you just have to do, that's something they have to do, right?
Yeah.
But now, even if I go on vacation now, I won't need to bring my laptop with me. I can bring an iPad or a tablet or even just my phone, to stay connected with everyone still if I needed to, or even with my employees. And so I guess in that sense too, the technology has brought it to a phone instead of a laptop, right? That you can still utilize and stay connected.
Well, and I love that you talk about that because it's so true, right? A lot of people get this fear that it's, well, what is transitioning to mobile mean as a traditional business? Does that mean getting rid of all of my in-person and desktop kind of interactions? And it's not, but it's the fact that if you want to, you can, right? You can be completely mobile. You can be, meeting those behavioral standards of being anywhere, anytime, and still be able to get business done. And you mentioned something interesting, right? Which is you can talk to your clients, but you can also talk to your staff.
Right.
Anywhere you are. And as a CEO of your and a founding, member of your company leading this organization, I'm sure that's crucial, right? To be able to not just keep track of what your customers need, but what your staff are up to.
Exactly. And that's so big. It's so big right now, just to be
Yeah.
connected with your staff, for sure.
So Ashish, you've made such interesting points, and it's already been so interesting to learn from you, right? Because in the end of the day, I'm sure for our audience and for me, right, it's hearing from someone who's actually gone through the last few years. You've built a business from the ground up over the last 6 years, you said, and now you've come to a point of actually being able to create something that's setting your brand apart for the future. So I want to talk about a few things in that, right? Which is this idea of we've talked about delivering an experience, right? That's what sets you apart, an experience that keeps you connected. There's visibility, and it's an interactive destination for your business. So when you think about this destination, what do you see as next steps for Cornerstone's digital future? And what are you thinking about as a member of this team? Leading your business.
Yeah, I'm thinking about more technology. I'm thinking about more automation and things like that. Because I think that's where we're headed now too, as far as technology is concerned. We
Yeah.
feel like the digital age is maybe just getting started, and it's going to get even more popular even post pandemic. I think it's gonna. I think the pandemic maybe was able to show off the digital age. But I think it's gonna grow even more uh, because of the fact that just to keep connected. I think connectivity with your clients and your customers and your staff is huge, and it could be done more with the mobile app than you need to with an email, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it ties in very well to this idea of having digital real estate and holding digital real estate, right? And like, I would love to just know from you, what does that mean to Cornerstone? Because I know from our customers, people think, and it was interesting, right before this webinar today, I was on a call with a fashion company. And she told me, she's like, hey, I come from a world of fashion and tech. And I'm trying to get people in this industry to realize that just because it's very creatively oriented, you have to keep up with the times. And Instagram is not the only way to set yourself apart from competition buying ads, but you have to create something that's more interactive, that holds digital presence where your customers will be inclined to click on you. And it's interesting for you because now you could argue that Cornerstone has that direct path, right? Anytime a customer thinks of, hey, I need to go through a permit process, it's not a let me look up your website, email you, take this out. It's a let me click a button on my phone and I get in touch with you instantly.
Exactly.
What does that mean for you, right? Holding that kind of digital real estate.
I mean, it's amazing that it's that easy, right? To be able to connect to someone that you need to uh, just by tapping on our logo on your phone, right?
Yeah.
I think and that's where we're headed. That's exactly where we're going. I have a few employees that work from home, and that don't need to be in the office. And it's helping them a lot too with the digital aspect of it, of having a mobile app where they may, and they have kids as well, so
Yeah.
they're on the go with their kids sometimes too. And I for sure know about that because of all the kids that I have. But to be on the go with your kids and still be able to stay connected
Yeah.
in some capacity is huge. It's huge for any mother or father.
Yeah.
If you're able to still be at the playground, let your kids play, but still, I can still make sure that things are getting done via my phone. Why not? You know?
Yeah. And I love that you brought up that point because I've talked to so many businesses who brought up that angle. We think of digital sometimes as, okay, it's cost effective, it's meaningful connections with our customers, it helps us build a differentiation strategy,
Right.
to build that digital resilience and that relationship with customers, all of the above. But it's also mental health, right? Because I think, in a way, what COVID has done for many people is given a lot of people more family time too, right? And you hear that a lot. One of our clients is AMCK Group, and they're a huge talent firm in the UK. And she said, she started off powering a digital experience thinking the value was a lower cost model and, hey, a great way to manage her talent and clients. But she said now it's even more than that. It's coming to a point of saying, with all these B2B customers and network of partners we have, I'm not sending my staff on a plane to fly out and sit there every time just to sit down for a 1 hour meeting because it's such a high end customer.
Right.
I can simply tell them you could be at home with your kids, you could be on the couch, you could be on vacation, and you could still be working, and I can still be, as an owner, controlling and managing the experience, so I know what you're up to and you're accountable for a certain standard of quality for my organization.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly it.
Well, I think you know, history tells us, right? Times of crisis can drive great reform. And in a way, in an era where digital interfaces are really the primary vehicle for business growth and recovery, we're seeing businesses can leverage this time to actually grow and nurture their customer network's confidence, right? And build that loyalty. So for you, I think in a way, as you're a great example of an organization that's kind of taken the pandemic by the head and created something incredible out of it, right? It's you're almost coming out stronger. And so from that perspective, we're seeing open innovation and we're seeing businesses fast tracking digital engagement. What are your hopes for, let's say, even the next 6 to 12 months? And I know you said technology, but with your customers, how do you kind of see that relationship making its way out of the new normal, as well as for your sales leaders and your account managers?
Now, our goal is, everyone has their own platform. Even our customers have their own platform that they utilize. But when they're going through a permit process and they hire us to do that,
Yeah.
we're not making them, but we're saying, look, test it out and see how it is. It's been everyone's been super receptive and loves the fact that we are staying connected the way we are, and is impressed with how we're doing it. So I feel like it's just gonna grow even more, where more and more people, just even the word of mouth of, okay, Cornerstone's utilizing a this mobile app that they have to show us that what's going on with our project, um, and when a project has been approved, and we're able to actually show them that it works, and we want to keep growing that. So to keep it, even just to, like I was saying before, email may be a thing of the past soon, right? Where you can keep it all within the app or within the portal and say, this is how we're going to communicate for this project. And it's all documented. So you have nothing to worry about. So
Yeah.
I feel like,
You have that word.
yeah, I feel like it's going to move more in that direction. The more we move in that direction too, you know?
Well, listen, it's been so interesting talking to you. And I think, I know for myself and for our viewers here, we gained a lot of insight from learning from someone like you, who, like we said, has built their business from the ground up and has come out of this in this new normal with building a digital resilience strategy and having digital presence that's interactive, that's meaningful, but that's also cost effective for you. And so I want to leave our viewers with a couple last questions. I know we've incorporated and definitely asked you most of the audience questions we've got. So if there are any more, please feel free, to the audience to drop them in the Q&A box. But I would like to ask you one last question, from our audience, which is, knowing that you've created this engaging, convenient experience as a B2B, brand for your customers, and you've seen that it's increasing business and it's creating loyalty. Any last points you're able to leave our audience with today on takeaways on how you would advise other businesses to approach building a customer-centric digital strategy?
Yeah, I think again, it's moving in the direction of in the digital age. It's just it want to make sure that you are paying attention to your clients, right? And which way they want to move as well. But to keep connected and keep communications through the app, through the portal is the direction that we are all moving in. I think that's gonna just like you're getting how you get your food. Everything is through an app. If
Yep.
you're not going to a restaurant, sometimes when you do go to a restaurant, you're still sometimes utilizing an application. And I think that trend is going to keep moving forward.
Well, Ashish, I have to say, thank you so much for your time today. And thanks to everybody who tuned into this conversation. It's been incredible talking to you and learning from you. And I think to our audience, we've got some amazing takeaways from this conversation, which, we've seen what Cornerstone has done, right? They've created a way to appeal to their customers. They've created a way to build their network and to build their brand, especially in comparison to their competitors in an industry that's really compared based off of relationships many a time, because the end product can be quite similar. And what Ashish is doing is, clearly taking that end product and transforming what they're actually getting, which is the product is now not just the permit, but it's the whole experience that, his customers are getting from start to finish with working with Cornerstone. And that's how he's setting his brand apart through that sort of a digital play. So, with that, I just like to thank everyone for their time and really thank you, Ashish, for talking us through the many ways you look at managing your business, which clearly is not just with your customers' convenience, but it's also thinking about your customers first, right? Which is the main thing. I loved it. You said that in the takeaways just now. It's keep it simple. Think
Right.
about your customer first. Sometimes people go about building a digital experience and you end up by the end of it with a bunch of money down the drain and your customer's still left with an experience that's not necessarily more convenient than what they had by simply calling you or emailing you.
Right.
And so, we really have to leave our viewers with that topic of saying, remember, when you're building your strategy, think about what your customers go through. What is going to set your experience apart for them versus another brand? And also an experience that builds your brand value, that sets you apart, and that leaves your customers with an experience that makes them remember you and recommend you. So, with that, thank you so much. Thank you, Ashish, once again.
Thanks for having me.
And Katie, back over to you.
Perfect. Thank you both so much. This was so great, super informational. Once again, I know many of you have asked. You are going to get a recording within the next 24 hours, and it'll be available at saleshacker.com. But with that said, I hope you all have a fabulous weekend, and thank you again, Moxtra, for all the great information. And hope everyone has a great week. Thanks, everyone.